This Christmas tree brings back a lot of memories with my dad. It's just a magical time of year. I love the joy, the goodwill towards all men, the magical feeling. And now that I have a son, I can create those same magical feelings. They'll create new traditions and just build that bond with them. It's just a special time of year, and I love it. But this time of year, this tree just really brings back memories of sitting down with my dad and just having some of the best conversations I'd ever had with him. We used to do something called Speak. And what Speak was we would go into the living room, and a lot of times there was no light. We didn't have any lights on in there. He would have the radio on. And he was a news junkie and a talk radio junkie and a sports junkie. But more times than not, he was listening or watching the news. And I just remember it. And he would sit in the big chair and I would sit in the little chair. And we would just speak. Me being so little, probably about 4 or 5 years old, talking to a grown man about things and feeling like it's an actual conversation, feeling like I'm actually being heard. He's really the person that set me on the path for good communication. But at the same time, he wasn't always a great communicator. This is Dad, Joe Earl Bonds. Born in Tennessee, went straight into the Navy right after high school, served 15 years, moved to Milwaukee because most of his family had moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where he met my mom sometime in the 80s. And then they had me. Then the next year they had my brother. Then 2 years after that, they had my sister. My dad died of cancer 11 years ago, so he's no longer with us. But I miss his communication every single day. There was times where he would call me and the first thing out of his mouth would be, "What about school? When are you going back to school? When are you going to finish? You know that's important." He was always a big proponent of education. He was as smart as a whip, as witty, probably the wittiest, sharpest, smartest person you would have ever come across. I know he was for me. But despite all that, he was very flawed. He was an alcoholic. And when he was not sober, he was not present. Physically, mentally, spiritually, and he definitely wasn't communicating correctly. Eventually, my mom had to make a decision. Do I continue to try and help someone who doesn't want help, or do I do what's best for my kids? So we moved, and my mom broke it off with him. And he was never in the home again. I was probably about 8 years old. And that began the ups and downs with the communication with my dad, at least for me. Now he's not here anymore, and I'm left with the question, am I like him? Do I communicate like my dad? Am I his exact spitting image? I know I'm not perfect, but I don't want to be like my dad either. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe more than a month ago, I put out to my younger brother, Marco, my younger sister, CJ. I didn't put this out to my two older sisters, Nikki and Renee, because they have a different dad than we do. And they picked up traits from their dad, not so much ours. So I put it out to my little brother and my little sister to help me out with the project. And I even gave them some questions to answer. And I did this through a text message feed. I did this through a Facebook Messenger feed. So it was in two different spots. I said, hey, I asked them questions about their interactions with dad, how they felt his communication was. Do they feel as if they picked up some of his traits? Who of us three do they feel is closest to him as far as communication goes? And I told them, hey, you can text me here on Facebook Messenger. You can text me on the phone. You can even give me a phone call. I'll take notes or even record it if you would like to be recorded. I really need help with the project. And nothing. It really perturbs me, but at the same time, it's like, that's dad. When dad was sober, he was efficient, on top of things, always got back to people, was there when you needed him. When he was not sober, this is what he did. He would not return your phone call in a timely fashion, if at all. He would show up after long stretches of time. He just wouldn't be the sharp communicator that we knew him to be when he was sober. And for him, I get it. He was dealing with alcohol, being an alcoholic. But my siblings don't have that sort of problem. They don't have a substance abuse problem. They don't have any of that. So what's the excuse? I'm doing a project in a very loving way about someone we all know and love, which is our dad, and you can't talk to your big brother about him. It's just disappointing. It's really disappointing. All right, so I'm out running errands right now, and I'm waiting in the bank line right now, and my aunt, Alma, from Detroit calls, and so she calls, and when she calls, she doesn't mention anything about my message asking if she would help me with this project and just talk to me about how my dad communicated with him. She's really the only sibling that he has left, even remotely in the area, that I could speak to. Everyone else is scattered all over the world, and I have no contact with them. And she's really the only one I have contact with. So she calls, and it's not to talk to me about my dad. She calls to tell me that whoever is in the video tickling my son, to not tickle him too much, because if you tickle him too much and he laughs like that hysterically, he's going to end up stuttering. My Aunt Alma is pushing 80, so she has some old school views. And it was my wife in the video posted on Facebook of her tickling our son. So I'm like, okay, all right. No mention of my dad. I asked her, hey, did you ever receive my message about dad? And she said, yes, but I don't know how I can help you. And at that point, I was just at a loss for words, because I just wanted to have a conversation with her about him. So no help. No help. All right, so about to make a phone call to my mother, my mom. If anybody knows anything about my dad and how he communicated, it's her. I think I wasted a lot of time trying to talk about everyone or talk to everyone else that was around the situation to no avail. But I think since my dad is no longer with us, she's probably the straightest source I could probably get to talk about it and how we communicated and everything else, and see if I'm a spitting image. So let's see. Got so many work phone calls in here, it's not even funny. I call my mom every week. Jeez, I got a lot of work calls on here. All right, here we are. Calling mom. Put her on speaker. Hopefully she answers.
Hello?
Hello, Medea.
Hey?
How are you?
Oh, I'm alright. A little tired, but I'm all good.
A little tired.
Yeah, a little tired.
Are you sick? Are you feeling good? You okay?
No, I'm not sick yet. I'm just a little tired.
Just a little tired, but you straight though.
Yeah.
Okay. So remember that conversation that I said we would have? You think we could talk about that a little bit right now?
Sure.
So I think, like, the last time we talked about it, you said that, and I had no idea this was the truth, that when you met Pops, he hid his alcoholism from you.
Wait a minute. You said he hid his alcohol?
Yeah, his alcoholism from you.
Yeah, he did.
How do you do that?
He would never drink around me.
Never?
I never seen him take a drink until we got on 33rd Walnut.
So you
And then he was drinking beer, and then he started drinking liquor.
and I mean, was it like a progressive thing? That's like,
Well, he had been clean for like 7 years.
wow.
And he didn't tell me nothing about it. Well, see, when I met him, we was just up here visiting.
Wow.
So I wouldn't know that then we moved here, he never showed that he had an alcohol problem. I had no clue until we moved in on Walnut Street.
Did you know what triggered it?
No, I really don't. I say because, you know, his friend Rod, and he had a twin brother.
Yeah.
Well, next I know, Rod was coming over and he was drinking beer, so maybe that triggered it.
So he just kind of relapsed then.
Yes, he did.
So was his communication, like when y'all first met, like how was his communication to when he started drinking again? Like, was there a big difference in some of the ways that he communicated with you in the beginning to when he started drinking?
Definitely, he didn't want to communicate at all, but he started drinking.
Because I know he was kind of a need-to-know basis type of guy. Was that the same way before he started drinking? Or was that really something that just settled in after he started drinking?
I don't know. Because like I said, when I met him, I had no clue that he was no alcoholic. And then after we had, been together for like 4 or 5 years, one of his relatives told me that he was alcoholic.
So he didn't even come out and just admit it to you. You had to learn it through one of his family members.
Yeah.
Sheesh. So there was no big communication differences that you noticed? Like any traits that were the same?
Now, he's very, very intelligent. Very.
Oh, yeah.
But, when he get into the drinking, he don't want to talk or nothing. His first thought was, to get out and get a drink.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. It was wake up, where's my next drink?
Yep.
But it wasn't all.
He didn't food.
But it wasn't always like that. Like, so how was his communication before? Like before he relapsed? Like how good of a communicator was he, or was he, you know, typical male where it's like he didn't really express his feelings, or how was he as a communicator with you?
He never really, other than telling me that he loved me and he loved y'all, his kids. There was no communication. Before I knew he was drinking, we had all kind of conversations. He was a good communicator. But not after he started drinking. I think that he was, you know, going out drinking beer or whatever with Raj or whoever, and he just got caught up. Again, when he knows he shouldn't have never took another drink.
Yeah. I mean, I wish he never would have.
Yeah.
So he was good until he relapsed. But were there any traits that he showed that were kind of the same before he was drinking and after he was drinking, like with as far as like how he communicated?
Well, like I said before, I knew he was drinking, or I don't think he was drinking. So we had good communication. And then afterwards, you know, that went to hell.
Yeah. You ain't kidding. I remember pulling him.
At time, they had no communication. Too busy out there running after whatever he can get a hold to.
Yeah, running around with Raj and all them.
Yeah, because it wasn't just drinking. You know, it was weed, it was pills.
Yeah. Yes. So, out of us three kids of his, because I mean, obviously Nikki and Renee, they're you know, they got their dad, and I'm pretty sure they picked up some traits from him. But out of us three, out of me, and Marco, and CJ, would you say our communication is a lot like his, or who's the most like Pops in their communication?
Are you talking about when he was drinking or after he was drinking?
Before he started, when he was in the, you know, the right mind frame, he was, you know, because you said he was a great communicator. Like, any traits that you can find to be a spitting image between us three, who would be the closest?
Well, you mainly, and then Marco.
And what parallel? Like, how so?
Well, I mean, both of you are very intelligent and you know how to communicate. And Marco is total opposite of him, though, when it comes to raising kids.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like you go to me that he was picking on Marco for some reason. And I didn't know, you know, he do different stuff when I was at work.
Yeah. Yeah, he would. Yeah, he would.
But y'all don't like taking none of them little underhanded ways.
Well, hey, that's good to know. That's good to know. So you would say I'm the closest to Pops, and then Marco,
Yeah.
and then CJ.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, ain't no dumbness between any of you.
Between any of us. I mean,
No, I'm like, you know, ain't no dumbness. Y'all not dumb. And never was. You was born very intelligent.
yeah, when the doctor talked about my head when I was born, I'm like, dude, I'm barely like 2 minutes old. You already talking about me. That's messed up.
You was born with a head like Charlie Brown.
Thanks, Mom. Tis the season, I guess.
So it was like, got the little round head.
Yeah, he do. He do. Oh man. Well, Ma, that's really all the questions I have for you, because it's just I'm really trying to figure this thing out and just piece it together and see if we parallel. So it was definitely good information.
All right. Let me know how it goes.
Hey, I certainly will. Thanks, Ma. I love you.
All right. Love you.
Bye, Ma.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was interesting. I had no idea that Dad had been clean for 7 years before he and my mom met. And once he got around a certain group of friends, and she's mentioned Raj, and I remember Raj, he was one of his old Navy buddies. He fell into that crowd again and never quite got all the way back out. But then to know he was a good communicator, and my mom felt he was intelligent, and then she feels that I am the spitting image of him as far as communication and a lot of other things go. I don't know how to feel about it, because she didn't really give specifics, and I tried to get specifics out of her, but she didn't really give true specifics. But when I sit down and think about it, I kind of know. So that conversation with my mom was pretty interesting. A lot of things were revealed that I had no idea. She feels like I'm exactly like my dad in regards to communication, but she didn't really give specifics on if it was good, if it was bad. I think it may be a mix of both. But I guess my mom knows me, obviously, but the one person who's with me every single day from here on out, here to eternity, is my wife. So who better than to kind of ask, what kind of a communicator am I? We'll see. We'll do this on a grocery shopping trip. That's always interesting. We have different styles when it comes to grocery shopping and getting things done and efficiently and all that. So communication definitely comes into play there. But maybe I'll throw a couple of questions at her and just see if we can puzzle this together and see, am I my dad or am I me? We'll see. So, I'm here with my wife, my son in the back seat. We've already had some interesting conversations about where to go, about the home life, things of that nature. You got nothing to say about that?
You're right.
Yeah. I wasn't saying it to be right, just saying. So, like I said, we're about to go and take this little grocery store trip. Maybe we'll hurl a couple of questions here and see what I'm like as a communicator. Should be fun. So, you're not sure what else we need?
Bananas. But I want to see what else is in these aisles.
Why do we even come here then?
Diapers, water, paper towel and that stuff too, but
No. It's like, we're not going to buy everything in bulk yet. This is the type of communication.
Cheese. Like a chunk of cheese.
We could get that at the regular grocery store.
Yeah, he likes cheese.
I know he likes cheese, and that's understood. Well, I'm
Show
saying,
him.
do we need a whole bunch of cheese? Yeah, they know he's there.
Oh, he likes cheese. There's some juice boxes.
Mommy's trying to buy up the whole friggin' store, not understanding that we have other stuff to go and get at other places. Do you see the price of that? Do you see the price? Do you see the price?
Yeah, but it's 40 juice boxes.
That don't matter.
Or get the Capri Suns.
We got
for
other
$7.
stuff to get.
saying we don't communicate. I get it.
I didn't say we don't communicate. We clearly had different ideas of what we were coming here for. That's for sure. Is this how we communicate?
Yep.
It's a work in progress. Clearly we weren't on the same page with this one because you clearly wanted to get more stuff. What else do we need to get?
Oh, we should get some bread.
That's a good idea. That we may need. Let's see. Question is, what kind of bread do we want? Yeah, this is the kind of communication we kind of do here. Like, I knew we were coming to Costco, and I knew there were certain items that we absolutely had to get from Costco, but I'm also making 2 dinners within a week, one for Christmas, one for New Year's, and a lot of that stuff we can get from other places, and we don't really need the stuff in bulk. So Costco is dangerous because we come here and she wants to get everything. How much that cheese gonna run?
That's not bad. Just bacon on curd.
We'll allow it. Teamwork. So we got back from grocery shopping and I didn't even have to ask my wife any questions. Just the way we interacted within the grocery store just really showed me that I got a lot more of my dad's traits than I thought. I do not like inefficiency. And I don't like half discussing things. I thought we had a full conversation on what we were going to go to to Costco to actually get, and the fact that, you know, the holidays are coming and I have multiple meals to cook. We were going to go and get that stuff from another place, and she's thinking that we're going to get everything at Costco, and like, well, we don't need to buy everything in bulk. You know, we don't have an army coming over, but, you know, I do have multiple meals to make. That is annoying, and my dad definitely came out in me with that because he didn't like halfway discussing things either, but that's when he was sober. When he wasn't sober, it was all about the drink. Also, the fact that he didn't like inefficiencies because he was a Navy SEAL. So everything had to be as efficient as possible to be able to go and get the job done and get it done quickly and get it done at a very, very high level. And that's definitely something I picked up from him. My wife has the tendency to have a list, but she will follow that list to a T. So if she has bread here and then milk after that, she will go to the section where the bread is and then go over to the milk when there could be something else on the list that she needs in the bread aisle, and she could easily get it. Instead, she goes here, has to travel back here, has to travel back over there, and it drives me nuts. And that's what was happening in that store. It was just driving me crazy. So, yeah. There's definitely some traits that my dad has passed on to me, for sure. You know, when I first started this project, I was so determined to prove that I was nothing like my dad. When I was younger, whenever someone would tell me, oh, you just like your dad, my mind would automatically go to something negative because of his alcoholism and because of the times where he was an absentee father, and other times when he was sober, he was very much involved in all of our lives. But my mind just would automatically go negative, and it felt like an insult, and I just didn't want to be like him because my mind was so negative when thinking about him. But as I grew up, even through this project, I realized that being like my dad isn't exactly a bad thing. Because yes, he was a flawed man. He had some not so great parts to him. But what human being doesn't? Everyone has something that they're not exactly great at. That doesn't mean you can't work to make it better. My dad wasn't always sober. That's the truth. But he wasn't always drunk either. He didn't always let his vice win. And it was in those times that he taught me some of the best lessons I could ever learn. So, I'm not my dad. That's the one thing I learned throughout this entire experience. I'm not my dad. I have parts of him, but I'm not my dad. I may be like him in certain ways, but I am 100% authentically myself. And I'm not perfect either. And there are some things that I can work on. The grocery store trip, I mean, that's a minor annoyance. It's not something that has to ruin my day. People tell me I'm like my dad, and I start thinking about the positive things that he's done in this world. The fact that he served this country proudly as a Navy SEAL. The fact that he was proud of that work. But he was still very much fighting for civil rights. That was the good in my dad. How great of a father he was when he was working hard to keep himself sober. How he was involved in my life and my brother's life and my sister's life and my two older sisters' life. And I wish they could have told you through their own words, but that's neither here nor there. My dad wasn't a bad guy. He just made some bad choices. But that doesn't completely ruin him as a person. And that doesn't ruin or override all the good traits that he had. And it doesn't mean that I've gotten all of his negative stuff either. There are two things my dad taught me that I realize I've carried for so long, and I still carry to this day. How to be a man and how not to be a man. How to communicate like a man, being present in the moment, getting back to people when they reach out to you, working to be a better communicator, working to be a better person. That's all on this side. That's the good qualities. To let your vices run your life. To let your addictions run your life and ruin it in some ways. Being an absentee father. See, those were choices that my dad made that weren't necessarily great. Not talking and communicating with myself and my brothers and sisters and my mom for weeks on end and showing up. Tattered clothing. Claiming he was house sitting in a house with no windows. When in actuality we know he was on a binge drinking trip. it was in those moments where my dad showed me how not to be a man. My dad had some communication traits that I carry with me to this day. He was on a need-to-know basis guy in certain situations. He was a firm believer that some things needed to be done and not discussed. I believe that too. And my wife has told me as much. I believe there are just certain things that just need to go and be done and not discussed. And these aren't big, huge, life-altering decisions. There are just some things that you feel need to be done, so you go and do them, so they're done, and everyone else is better for it. My dad was an efficient guy. Liked to do things very efficiently. It's the Navy SEAL in him. I'm much the same way. There's always a better way to do something. And you best believe I'm going to probably find it. My mom said my dad was an outstanding communicator with her before he began drinking again. They would have deep conversations, and I think that's part of the reason why they fell in love with each other, because they were able to get deep in conversation, and they were each other's best friend. Their communication was in sync. I feel the same way with my wife. We have some very deep conversations. We fell in love with each other because of our ability to converse with each other on a different level. This project has made me realize that I am a lot like my dad, a lot more than I ever realized. But it's also taught me that I'm my own man. And I don't have to fear being like my father, because there is nothing to fear. Because I am not my father. I'm me.